Good evening, y'all. This is Platoon, Foxtrot Platoon, evenings, weekends. We're in week 17. That means we're in React. This is useEffect, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. I know we've played with it a bit. Today, we're going to utilize it to perform fetches. You'll see all that kind of comes in. So we've learned how to deploy static web pages through React.js components and how to use event handlers to update their React components. However, on their own, event handlers can only update React components based on user input or other React components. If you need to connect to a browser DOM or another server, something outside of React, we're going to have to perform some fetches, and then we're going to have to use something that gives kind of state to a component. To do that, we use useEffect. A lot of different ways to do this with class-based React. We don't dig too deep into class-based React now. It's the old way, functional's the new way, and by new, I mean it was new when I learned it 4 years ago. But guarantee, if you keep working in React, you go places, there's going to be some class-oriented React projects. The hope and my assumption is that learning to do it this way, it'll be an easy transition over. But one of the hard transitions is the wild number of different hooks available to you in old school React. Now, most everything we're doing is useEffect. You don't have to worry too much about the life cycle of React, when things mount, when things are about to mount, when they're, when they're unmounted, when things shift, when something updates. There used to be a big, there's a big list of different times you can make something happen. useEffect can be leveraged to handle most everything you kind of want to do. So keep that in your mind. I'm not going to run down that rabbit hole. Do know there are other ways to accomplish what useEffect does using class-based components. So according to React documentation, you can open this up, which is kind of nice to see. I mean, it's JavaScript, y'all. Look how goofy this stuff is. You state it, open up a parentheses, you invoke it, fat arrow function, open it up, oh, start another, right? It gets a little complex. What's actually going on? Easy, look at the documentation. useEffect, you're going to invoke it. Code will run here after every render, right? What was I looking for? Where's that? Basically, I want to show you what happens right here. Oh, there we go. This is kind of what I wanted to talk about. Step 3, add cleanup method. Basically, should have prepared this rather than said, oh, that's good, we should talk about that in class. Basically, this second argument here with useEffect, that is what is going to trigger useEffect to run any additional times. Sitting here trying to read through documentation. Whatever comes after this comma in these brackets will fire pretty much every time that component, or sorry, that state changes. I think I'm losing my mind. I'm just scrolling too fast. Got too much caffeine. We'll see it in action. Because now I'm about to say something I'm not 100% sure of. But what's happening here is this is going to re-render every single time count is updated. So we can slap this in React app.js, any component you want. For practice, let's start a brand new React project. Use invite. Squid project. Let's build it in React. Let's use JavaScript. cd squid project. npm install. No magic there, no memory required. Just do what Vite tells you to do. Easy peasy. It's all here. Great. Auto-generated. Is it running? Or is it runnable, rather? Look at that. Brand new React. Looks good. Counts. Has all the cool stuff. So this is an example that updates the page every time the counter state updates, which is going to be about every second. Let's paste all this in here, and then let's talk about it. So I'm just going to replace everything here. That should work, right? That didn't delete too much. Oh my goodness, that's so ugly. I don't want it to do it nicer, but that's fine. Yeah, we'll just paste over the whole thing. I like how that looks. So we're gonna import React, useEffect, useState from React. We need to use state to set state. Here is useEffect invoking itself. Fat arrow function. What's going on in here? Set timeout. Never seen that before. You can Google that. That's something you can use within useEffect. Not crazy. UseEffect, set timeout. Look at that. George's Googled it before. We can get into how to use set timeout in React. Basically, it's got a callback. It's got a delay. So set timeout. We are going to set count. The new count is going to be count plus 1. And we're going to do this every 1,000 milliseconds, I think. 1,000? Yeah. I'm not wrong, right? Someone nod. All right. And recall this. This is what is going to trigger our useEffect. It's going to run once. As soon as the page renders, useEffect is going to render. And then every single time count updates, it's going to retrigger this. So rather, it's going to retrigger a render. Set timeout is going to be updating count every 1,000 milliseconds. So we should be re-rendering every 1,000 milliseconds. And since count is incrementing, expect to see that go up. Is it doing that? Oh, look at that. It's been running this long. Seems like it's been running a lot. I guess just pasted it recently. It's gonna go indefinitely, I imagine, or ooh, why did it stop? Oh, it stopped because it takes some time. Anyways, if all your stuff's running quick, you got a nice new machine, not an old school Intel Mac like me, might be a little bit faster on the rendering. But I am in Chrome, and it's just the most difficult thing you can do on an Intel Mac. You don't understand all this exactly, that's okay. The big points, using state, which we know how to use, count, set count, there's a callback function to it. It's going to start at 0, and then useEffect is going to trigger an update, set count, every time this set timeout runs, and on the initial run. Count's updating, because set count is updating count to plus 1 every 1,000 milliseconds, which is the second argument to set count, set timeout. And that just keeps re-rendering on the same page. Not a refresh, re-render. Does that make sense? Do we have questions about this? Combining useEffect and fetch. You may not want your API call to run until after you've rendered the rest of the website or the web page. This is true. You can, if you want, whenever a page is rendered, you fire off an API call right then and there. But what you don't really want to do is be waiting on an API call to finish. For a lot of these smaller things we're doing, that's not going to be that evident. But putting pretty heavy API calls, whether they're heavy or not, just any time to resolve, let's say there's like a connection, slowage. Um, you don't want to click on a page, see a blank page, wait, and then have it render once the API call is done. Instead, you will render it after the page has, you will make that call after the page is rendered. So using useEffect, after we've rendered the DOM, it's going to run all this again the first time, remember? So after the page is brought up, it's loaded up, this is going to run once. It's also going to be reran every time this state here, goal given, is changed, is state is updated, right? I would call this a very conventional, way to render your data. Does that make sense? It's just a kind of you want to make your website a little bit faster. And it's not just like little gains. We're talking this can be a big deal. So generally, if you're making calls, you do it in the useEffect most of the time, not always, but most of the time. We can just copy paste all this in here and then we'll talk about it. Again, I'm just slapping it over app.jsx. Don't do this normally, put it in components. It's app.jsx, we keep it clean, we keep it light. It's gonna be a router at some point. Then our function, we have state set here. So what this is going to be, by the way, very, very silly little third-party application. This is going to go get a goal and set it. And if you click the button, it's going to change the goal. We're going to accomplish that with, upon the page render, within useEffect, we're going to run fetch data. This is going to be asynchronous. Why asynchronous? You've probably gotten used to doing requests in Python. And I've talked about this before. Stop me if you heard it. Just kidding. This is for everybody watching. Python's request library, which you may have gotten used to, it seems like it does it, and then it continues on, no problem. And you don't have to think about it. It is doing this behind the scenes, right? If you were to write out a physical, if you were to put bash into your Python and curl and then try to utilize that and you ran it immediately, your Python would break. The request library in Python does these things asynchronously. It will tell the program, hey, wait till I'm done, and then go on. If you don't run an asynchronous function on a fetch, we'd get right here. Technically we'd get about right here, and it would say, oh, I don't know, I'm blank. I can't run JSON on blank data, because this fetch here to this website would have not completed instantaneously. So when we're running fetches, it needs to be asynchronous. An asynchronous function written this way, fetch data, doesn't matter. This could be foobar. Oh, wait. Yes, no, that's fine. Async, fat arrow function, and then all within this is our fetch. I like to indent these, but that's fine. Doesn't matter. It's JavaScript, right? API data is going to await this fetch. So this cannot be set until this is done. We're awaiting this right here. Fetch is just running a curl to this website and setting its output to this variable. API JSON, await API.data, or sorry, API data.json. We're waiting to create, or sorry, to set this as JSON, readable JSON. It's got to wait till this is done, though. And this can't get done until this is done. And then right here at the bottom, at the end, set daily goal. Daily goal, remember, is this state we have up here. And we're going to set that to API JSON.activity. Don't know what an activity is? That's okay. That's not JavaScript. That's just from this website. Look at that. That's all this does. Activity seems to be organize your dresser. And I think this is just going to keep changing, right? This is always giving us something different. So it's not always going to be, the one that we saw. But it will be a list of activities, right? It's got titles, participants, all this junk. But we're really just interested in activity. So that's get set. Fetch data is run down here. All this is, sorry, established here, set here, defined here is the gosh darn word. We're going to run all this fetch data here. Set goal given false. So this has been run. This sets state here. And then we're going to set goal given to false. You may be thinking, hey, isn't that already false? We'll get there right here. And again, useEffect is to be retriggered every time goal given is done, is reset. Down here in the JSX, your goal today. Today you will, whatever that state is, it's going to be none, null. But it's not really going to be null. It's going to trigger almost instantaneously and be set to whatever activity we pull from that API. There's a button on click. This is going to set goal given to true. Let me figure a new goal. So when we set goal given to true, this state is updated. Because that state is updated, useEffect is going to re-trigger again because goal given has now changed. It's going to run, pull all this down, set a new status of our daily goal here, turn set goal given back to false, and that's it. It's just a trigger on and off. This is a way to do this. This is not the most efficient way to do this, but we are just kind of an on and off button of go pull something down. Let's see if it works the way it says it does. So we've already got one pulled up. That's because useEffect ran the very first time we loaded this page. Click, and there it is. Today you will plant a tree. Today you will learn how to ice skate or roller skate. Is anyone seeing something maybe not quite right here?
Yeah, it looks like it's pulling two of them, one really quick and then the actual one.
It absolutely is. And I was trying to figure out a good solution for that. I was kind of running into some blanks. It's probably not the greatest way to do that. You could just run useEffect off of, I don't know, this one being updated, but I'm pretty sure what's happening is this gets triggered, useEffect runs, it resets this, and then when it's set back to false, I think it's running again. Pretty sure it's running again. So we set it to true, useEffect triggers, useEffect trigger sets it to false, it changes, useEffect runs again. Now that I think about it, we could just, I don't want to do this while I'm being recorded. There's different ways to set true false. We could just toggle it. I think we could do something like goal given. Is that going to do what I think it is? Or is that going to break it entirely? My logic sound, or is it wrong? Oh, because it's not ever going to do that. This. Is that right? Oh no! Someone help me out here. How can we make this always just trigger one time? Am I crazy? Tim, you got any ideas for this? Maybe we can
You could
do.
maybe just make it a counter instead of a boolean, so it just changes once. So you don't need to set it again
Yeah.
in the useEffect.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, it would be running kind of not endlessly. That works too. Dang, what is there's an easy way to set toggles on Booleans, and I'm not thinking of it right. Oh, false. Is that right? I mean, true. Uh, uh, uh. Oh, that's not gonna fix it either. Coding's fun. Okay. Oh, broke it. Anyways, yeah, y'all get the point. Yeah, let's go ahead and just show that that works. So set that to 0, right? And then we just oh, I always forget how to do this. Roll. It's just is that wrong? Am I losing my mind? Ah, oh no. Oh, I've broken it entirely. Oh, because I don't need to do this now. Man, what interesting television. Dang it, I'm not doing it right. Anyways, why is that not setting? It's gonna make me mad.
I think if you want to do it the way you did, you can use I think it's a previous, if you, as the argument put in, something like that.
Previous. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I might be misremembering but on line 27, you can use set goal given and then put the argument as, it may not be previous, but something like that, and then change it with an arrow function.
Gotcha, gotcha. Oh, wait, can I just cheat? See, I thought this was right. I thought this would work exactly the way I wanted to. Okay, but is that not what I did? Except it's goal. Uh, 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 uh. Oh, because it's not. Goodness gracious. Um, better? Hey, look at that. So it's just incrementing by 1 every time. This gets it done. It's not going to be flipping a switch, triggering. You are counting indefinitely for no reason. But there we go. Good job, everybody. It's one fired once. I swear I've got a better solution for true, false, just a toggle switch, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm too fried. But I will post it in Slack. So, props, state, and effects. All 3 of these are often used together in the same React components, but they have different purposes, and they're summarized below. And this is kind of self-explanatory maybe when you get to use them. But props are passed down from parent components to their child components. They're immutable. You can't do anything with a prop and expect something uphill to change, right? It's just a read-only prop. State contains data within the component. It's initialized using, use state. You'll know how that works. Mutable, change state, using set state. Again, do not directly mutate your state. You're not going to like it. Only accessible within component it was created in. It needs to be passed on as props or as a callback function. useState turns stateless components stateful. Is a weird way to say that. But it does. useState is generally when you want something to trigger off when you want re-renders to trigger off of some kind of effect on the page, either user input or a fetch being performed or running it the first time, after the page renders. And then effects, which we've kind of seen with, on click, you want to see things change on click. Side effects caused by rendering instead of events via event handlers. Run after page rendering is complete, created using useEffect. Can be used to synchronize components with non-React external sources. Can be triggered at various times. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know why we would loop all these things together. I think it's a very different. Props is information passed down to child components. State is mutatable data used within a component that is going to trigger re-renders. And effects is anything else you do beyond that re-render, right? State updating is going to be changing, this value here. But performing this action here is what's being done in the effect. I know I'm talking a little high level about that, but do we understand a state change can change what's shown on the page, and an effect can show or change what's shown on the page, but they're obviously different things, right? But it's two different ways to get the same thing done. If you want to just change the way something looks, it's state. If you want to have additional effects, you do it with effects. Props is just data getting passed down. Fun little summary. Any questions? This is important. You can probably copy paste this and do 90% of API calls that you want to get done with your components. And you can get pages to trigger re-renders based off of what you pull on down. This is very powerful. You're going to be using useEffect a lot to make a responsive web page. Going once, going twice.